Welcome back to another review of Eerie, Indiana. If you're new here, I've been doing a review of every single episode of Eerie, Indiana, so feel free to watch my previous videos. In this video, I'll be reviewing episode 14, Hole in the Head Gang, so let's get into it. This episode originally aired on March 1st, 1992, and was directed again by Joe Dante of Gremlins, so you know it's going to be a good one. The episode starts off with Marshall and Simon investigating a haunted place. Marshall says that every town has one, but in Eerie, they counted 50 haunted structures, and this one was number 51. Simon sees a bunch of signs telling people to stay out, but they continue on. Marshall notices bullet holes along the wall, and Simon tells Marshall about their gun policy.
We got a strict policy about guns, remember?
I know.
We don't like them. Let's just get some pictures and get out of here.
They break the door open and investigate the place. The door shuts behind them suddenly, and bats fly around, making them duck down to avoid them. They hear a noise and shine a light in the direction of it, but see a chair floating in the air by itself. Marshall takes a picture of it, and then hears a voice.
Let the dead stay dead.
Then the chair flies towards them, followed by laughter. They see flashing lights coming from a room in the back. They get up and get closer to investigate, and when they do, they see a floating head.
Now or stay forever.
It cuts to the world of stuff where Marshall tells us something weird was going down. We see police taking away Radford, only it's not really Radford. Apparently, the reason why Mr. Radford was always acting weird all the time was because he was a compulsive imposter. His real name was Fred Suggs. Evidently, the real Mr. Radford had been tied up in the basement the whole time. The real Mr. Radford was played by John Astin, who was best known for playing Gomez Addams from the original Addams Family, and I remember him playing the second Riddler from the Batman and Robin TV show. The real Mr. Radford tells Marshall and Simon that since they are his first customers in a while, that drinks are on the house. Marshall asks him why he didn't press charges on the fake Mr. Radford. And Radford tells him that despite being tied up in the basement, he was one heck of a salesman, saying he moved more merchandise in the past 6 months with him being in the basement than he has in his best year, saying you can't find help like that anymore.
How are we supposed to know for sure if you're the real Radford?
You don't.
Marshall is looking at the pictures they just took, and Simon asks how they came out. Marshall tells him they all came out great except the money shot. Mr. Radford brings them their drinks and notices the pictures of the Hitchcock Mill and asks them if they're amateur photographers. Marshall says sort of. Mr. Radford tells them that if they know that the mill is haunted. Marshall and Simon answer and say they know. Mr. Radford tells them that the mill is haunted by Grungy Bill, the worst bank robber east of the Mississippi. Simon asks if he was evil. Mr. Radford tells him he was the worst, as in bad, incompetent. And he tells them that when it came to robbing banks, something always went wrong. Radford tells them he was arrested 12 times. Marshall asks why he's haunting the mill, and Radford first reassures him that there's no such thing as ghosts.
Of course you realize there's no such thing as ghosts.
Of course.
Since he forgot his gun, the sheriff's posse tracked them back to the mill and surrounded the place and shot it full of holes, with Grungy Bill along with it. Radford tells them people claim to see him on the hill sometimes looking for his gun.
Of course, there's no such thing as ghosts.
Of course.
Marshall and Simon go back to the mill to get a better picture of Grungy Bill, but this time they were prepared. When they enter the mill, Marshall notices that someone put the crashing floating chair back together. Simon takes a picture of it. Marshall calls out to Grungy Bill, seeing if he would appear, but notices a wire and a pulley. When he pulls on the wire, the chair begins to lift up. Simon asks why a ghost would need a wire, and Marshall tells him a ghost wouldn't, and slams the chair to the wall. Then Simon hears a ghostly voice calling his name. It turns out to be Marshall speaking through a pipe. Marshall tells Simon they've been had, and to take a picture of it. Then they discover the way the lights have been flickering with a car battery. They discover that someone's been living there. They decide to take a picture of it for evidence.
Who'd be crazy enough to live in a haunted house? I mean, besides a ghost.
I've got a better question for you. Who would be crazy enough to mess with someone's stuff who's crazy enough to live in a haunted house?
We are introduced to a new reoccurring character on the show. His name is Dash X and was played by Jason Marsden, who's done a ton of stuff, but is known for playing Max Goof in a Goofy movie, Thackeray Binks in a Hocus Pocus, Garrett Miller in Extreme Ghostbusters, and Nelson Burkhardt on Full House. Marshall and Simon feel awkward and decide to leave, but Dash X blocks their exit. Dash tells them he's not letting them go until they tell him what they're doing there. Marshall tells him to talk to his lawyer, which makes Dash push Marshall against the wall. Marshall finally tells them that they thought Dash was a ghost, which makes Dash laugh and pull out his mask. Marshall then figures it out that it was Dash all along doing the haunts.
What's with the gray hair? I'm starting a trend. What's it to you?
Dash tells them that they better not tell anyone that he's there, or basically he'd come for them. Dash asks for the video evidence, and Simon gives it to him. As Dash destroys the videotape with his foot crashes through the floorboard.
I gotta talk to the landlord about these floors.
Dash finds something hidden underneath the floorboards. It's a really old and rusted gun.
Solid rust. Ain't even loaded.
Just after the gun is shot, smoke appears to be coming out of the barrel and a figure forms. It's Grungy Bill, who was played by Claude Atkins, who was known for Battle for the Planet of the Apes. Sadly, Claude passed away in 1994. Grungy Bill picks up his gun, which reverts back to its original shape, and thanks him for finding his gun, and then tells him to reach for the sky. Grungy Bill makes Marshall tie up Simon and Dash with rope. Grungy Bill tells Marshall that he has a plan to rob the Eerie Bank, which Simon then remembers the legend. Grungy Bill thinks they have a good legend story about him, but Marshall bursts his bubble and tells them that the legend is that he's the worst bank robber ever, and that they heard that he tried to rob the Eerie Bank 13 times.
12. Is this 12?
Whatever. Anyway, the last time he forgot his gun.
Nobody's perfect.
Grungy Bill says he's got a plan this time. Marshall asks what his plan is.
Man,
Well, we ride to the bank. We go inside. We draw our guns. Tell them to give us all the money. What do you think?
I think you're an idiot.
What?
With an incredibly brilliant plan for robbing the Bank of Eerie.
Dash asks Grungy Bill what's the dead guy gonna do with all that money, and Grungy Bill tells him it's not about the money, that it's the principle. He doesn't want to be remembered as the worst bank robber in history, so he tells Marshall to come with him, and that if anyone tries to stop him, Marshall will get it.
Gets what?
You know. It.
This kind of stuff happened to you guys a lot.
At least once a week.
As Marshall and Grungy Bill leave the mill, Grungy asks Marshall where the horses are. Marshall tells him that he's been dead for so long that all they have are their bikes. Grungy Bill decides that they will walk and that they need to get a disguise for Marshall. Inside the mill, Simon reveals to Dash that if anyone can get out of this situation, Marshall can, revealing Marshall's name to Dash. Dash then asks Simon for his name, and Simon tells him. Then Simon asks Dash for his name. Then Dash tells him he doesn't know his real name. As Dash falls, you can see Simon take his hands out of the rope, and then his hands are still behind the rope in the next scene. Just a little something I thought I'd point out. Anyway, Dash begins to tell Simon how he came to be in Eerie.
See, 3 months ago, I wake up here in Weirdsville, Indiana, and I don't remember anything. How I got here, who I am, nothing, zip zero, not even my own name.
Wow.
Dash tells him he has no mom, no dad, and he sleeps anywhere he can and dumpster dives for food. He begins to leave, but Simon tells him they need to help Marshall, but Dash says he doesn't care, and the next time Simon sees him, he doesn't know him. Simon then tries to think what would Marshall do. It cuts to the Bank of Eerie, and we see Grungy Bill and Marshall come out of the bushes, but Marshall is now dressed as an old woman. As they walk towards the bank, Marshall is trying to talk Grungy Bill out of it, but Grungy Bill tells Marshall to shut up, and that he's robbing the bank if it's the last thing he does. Inside the Eerie Bank, Grungy Bill tries to cut everyone in line, but they tell him to go back in line, so they do. Grungy Bill thinks everything is going well. He asks Marshall if he knows what to do, and Marshall tells him that he will give them the note and stuff the money in his dress. Then we see a little Foreverwhere Easter egg.
A little freshness. If you save up enough pennies, you can buy a dolly-sized Foreverwhere tub, so your dolly will never age, just like you and Mommy.
Then Marshall's parents walk in behind them. It seems they want that free toaster the bank is offering.
A toaster? Someday you kids are gonna grow up and leave us, and when you do, you're gonna need a toaster.
And you can't beat the price.
Just then, Simon walks in and Edgar sees him and asks where Marshall is.
Last I saw, he was nowhere near the bank. Well, if you see Marshall, tell him we're having Swedish toast for dinner. You're invited too.
It's Grungy Bill's turn now, and we see the bank teller is Fred Suggs, the fake Mr. Radford. Seems like he bounced back pretty fast. Marshall hands him the note and tells him to read it. We then see Dash enter the bank and get in line behind Simon. Grungy Bill and Marshall notice them. Dash pushes Simon, which bumps the Foreverwhere girl with the piggy bank to drop it, which causes a distraction, which then Marshall takes back the note from Fred, and just as Grungy Bill is about to shoot Dash, Marshall knocks the gun out of Grungy Bill's hand, which falls on the floor, and immediately turns into Rust-A-Gun. Dash grabs the gun and runs away. Grungy Bill starts to fade away, but says he's not leaving without robbing the bank. Back at the mill, Grungy Bill is admiring his new toaster. Marshall tells Grungy Bill that now that he's robbed the Eerie Bank, to maybe consider giving up now and to possibly die. Grungy Bill tells him he needs his gun, then Dash appears. Grungy Bill asks Dash what he did with his gun, and Dash shows him what he did. The gun is now in pieces.
Adios.
Marshall thinks this is all too weird, even for them. Just then, they notice Dash is gone. They look outside to find him, but he's gone. Marshall says he has a bad feeling that Dash is going to get them into a lot of trouble, and they don't even know his name. And Simon replies and says it's okay, because neither does he. And that concludes episode 14. Now, I always enjoy a good ghost story, and this episode I thought was done very well. I liked how they made Grungy Bill very clumsy, and how he goes into the toaster at the end. It was nice to see some new characters join the cast with Dash and the real Mr. Radford, although I did enjoy the fake Mr. Radford as well, and like that they still gave him a role in this episode. Let me know if you remember this episode, and I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.